Welcome back to CBS Mornings. Actor Patrick Dempsey is not a real doctor. He just played one on TV very well, we have to say, in 11 consecutive seasons of Grey's Anatomy. I remember when we first met McDreamy.
The strangest thing about Grey's Anatomy isn't who dies, it's who leaves. For a show built on high-stakes tragedy, some of its most unforgettable exits happen quietly, shaped less by the script and more by real-life decisions behind the scenes. Christina Yang didn't die, but chose to leave, mirroring Sandra Oh's decision to step away after a decade. Derek Shepard's shocking death wasn't just a twist, but came amid reported tensions involving Patrick Dempsey. Even Ellen Pompeo's departure as Meredith Grey was somewhat unexpected by fans.
Grey's Anatomy was a remarkable ride, and without that success, I probably wouldn't be here today talking to you.
A good number of years, I would say the first 10 years, we had serious culture issues.
As dramatic as the show was, the real drama often went on behind the scenes. Join us as we explore the behind-the-scenes truths. From the very beginning, the series never promised permanence. When it first aired in 2005, it was built like many medical series, having a central lead surrounded by a rotating cast of interns, residents, and attending surgeons. At the time, few could have predicted that the show would stretch beyond a decade, let alone become one of the longest-running primetime medical dramas in television history. Longevity, however, comes with a cost, and in this case, that cost has been continuity. Unlike shorter series where character arcs are carefully mapped from beginning to end, Grey's Anatomy operates more like a living organism. It adapts, sheds, and regenerates. Characters enter with compelling backstories, evolve over multiple seasons, and then, often without warning, exit in ways that feel abrupt compared to the years audiences have invested in them. Television, especially network television, is bound by contracts, ratings, and real-world logistics. Actors typically sign multi-year agreements, but those agreements are rarely indefinite. As seasons pass, negotiations become more complex, salaries increase, creative expectations shift, and personal priorities change. Eventually, the question is no longer if someone will leave, but when. What makes Grey's Anatomy unique is how openly it reflects this instability, even if it doesn't always acknowledge it directly. The hospital setting provides a convenient narrative excuse for the doctors leaving, either from moving, specializing, transferring, or suffering burnout. But over time, viewers have come to recognize that most times the exits mirror real-life decisions more than fictional necessities. Over the years, this pattern has transformed from a disruption into a defining feature. Early departures may have shocked viewers, but repetition has turned unpredictability into expectation. When a major character begins to receive less screen time or their storyline starts to narrow, longtime fans often recognize the signs. Speculation begins long before any official announcement is made. And yet, despite this awareness, the impact of each exit rarely diminishes. If anything, it intensifies. The longer a character remains, the more deeply they are woven into the fabric of the show, and the harder it is to imagine the story without them. Viewers don't just watch these surgeons, they grow with them. They witness their failures, their relationships, their grief, and their victories over the course of years, sometimes decades. So when a character leaves, it doesn't feel like a narrative decision. It feels like a disruption of something familiar. What complicates this further is that not all exits are created equal. Some are carefully planned, giving characters a sense of closure that aligns with their journey. Others are sudden, leaving behind unanswered questions and unfinished arcs. But regardless of how they are executed, each departure reinforces the same underlying truth. No one is guaranteed to stay. If Grey's Anatomy has a blueprint for how a character should leave, it begins and ends with Christina Yang. Christina Yang leaving on her own terms. In a series known for chaotic exits due to sudden deaths, unresolved arcs, and behind-the-scenes complications, Christina's departure stands out for one simple reason. It was intentional. It wasn't reactive, forced, or rushed. It was planned well in advance by both the writers and Sandra Oh, who had made it clear that 10 seasons were enough. That level of clarity is rare in long-running television. By the time Christina exited in season 10, she wasn't fading into the background or being written into a corner. She was, arguably, at her peak. Professionally, she had evolved into one of the most skilled cardiothoracic surgeons in the show's universe. Personally, she had outgrown many of the conflicts that once defined her. Her ambition, once portrayed as cold or isolating, had become her greatest strength. She knew exactly who she was, and that's precisely why her ending worked. Instead of killing her off or forcing a dramatic collapse, the show allowed her to choose herself, something almost unheard of in Grey's Anatomy. She accepted a prestigious opportunity in Switzerland, stepping into a leadership role that matched her growth. It wasn't framed as a loss, but as a continuation and an acknowledgement that her story didn't end just because she left Seattle. Behind the scenes, this mirrored Sandra Oh's own perspective. After a decade on the show, she had spoken openly about wanting to leave while the character still felt complete. In interviews, she emphasized the importance of not overstaying and of recognizing when a role had reached its natural conclusion. It was a decision rooted in creative discipline. Meanwhile, many departures from Grey's Anatomy feel like they happened to the characters. Christina's exit, by contrast, felt like something she actively shaped. The difference is subtle but real. It gave the audience a sense of closure that the show rarely provides. Her final episodes reflect this intentionality. The narrative slows down, giving space for reflection rather than shock. Key relationships are revisited, especially her bond with Meredith Grey. Their friendship is often described by fans as the emotional core of the series, and it receives a farewell that feels earned. There's no dramatic rupture, no betrayal, just an understanding that people can move forward without severing what came before. Even the tone of her goodbye is different. Where other exits are marked by grief or chaos, hers is defined by clarity. She isn't running from something, she's moving towards something. That forward momentum reinforces the idea that leaving doesn't always have to be tragic. And yet, her departure still left a noticeable void. Christina wasn't just another character. She was a defining presence. Her sharp wit, relentless ambition, and refusal to conform made her stand out in a cast full of strong personalities. Removing her from the equation inevitably shifted the show's dynamic. The balance changed, the energy changed, and even the pacing of certain storylines felt different without her influence. So, in reality, even the most well-executed exit comes with consequences. The show continued, of course, and new characters were introduced. Existing ones were given more space to develop, but her absence was never fully replaced. Her legacy could be found in references going forward, in the evolution of other characters, and in the expectations she helped set. Her departure became a benchmark, and fans began to compare subsequent exits to Christina's, often unfavorably. When later characters left abruptly or without proper closure, it only proved how rare her kind of send-off was. It wasn't just about writing, but also about alignment. The actor, the character, and the story all moved in the same direction at the same time. If Christina Yang's exit represented control, then Derek Shepard's departure was the exact opposite. The Derek Shepard shock. Derek Shepard's exit wasn't just emotional, it was jarring. For over a decade, he wasn't just another character, he was the character alongside Meredith Grey. Their relationship anchored the series, shaping its tone, its stakes, and its identity. The idea that Grey's Anatomy could exist without him felt almost unthinkable, and yet, in Season 11, that's exactly what happened. His death came suddenly as a car accident, followed by a series of medical errors, which led to a conclusion that many viewers found both devastating and frustrating. It wasn't just that Derek died, it was how it happened. For a show built on surgical excellence, watching one of its most brilliant surgeons fall victim to preventable mistakes felt intentionally cruel. But the shock didn't stop at the storyline. Behind the scenes, reports began to surface about tension involving Patrick Dempsey. While details were never fully confirmed in one unified narrative, multiple accounts pointed to challenges on set from creative disagreements, scheduling conflicts, and a growing sense that it was time for him to move on. Eventually, his departure was finalized, and the writers were left with deciding how to remove one of the show's most essential characters. They chose finality. Killing Derek ensured that there would be no ambiguity, no possibility of a casual return that might disrupt future storylines. From a production standpoint, it was decisive. From an audience perspective, it was brutal. This is where Grey's Anatomy reveals one of its most uncomfortable truths. Sometimes, storytelling choices are driven less by narrative intention and more by necessity. When an actor leaves under complicated circumstances, the show must adapt quickly, and those adaptations don't always align with what feels emotionally satisfying. His removal was a clear example of this tension. On paper, it provided high drama. It reinforced the show's willingness to take risks and reminded viewers that no character was truly safe. But it also exposed the limitations of reactive storytelling. Unlike Christina's carefully constructed exit, his felt abrupt, almost like a rupture in the narrative rather than a conclusion to it. The ripple effects were immediate. Meredith's storyline shifted dramatically, moving from a central love story to a narrative defined by grief, resilience, and independence. The tone of the show darkened, at least temporarily, as it adjusted to the absence of one of its foundational relationships. Other characters were pulled into new roles, filling emotional and narrative gaps left behind. And yet, for many fans, everything seemed to have changed. Derek Shepard wasn't just written out. He was removed in a way that made his absence impossible to ignore. There was no gradual transition, no easing into a new dynamic. One moment, he was there. The next, he wasn't. That abruptness amplified the sense of loss, making it feel less like a storyline and more like a disruption. It also sparked a broader conversation about how Grey's Anatomy handles its most important characters. Was the decision to kill Derek necessary? From a logistical standpoint, perhaps. From a narrative standpoint, it remains debated. Some argue that it added weight and realism, reinforcing the unpredictability of life. Others see it as an unnecessarily harsh solution to a behind-the-scenes problem. What's undeniable is its impact. Even seasons later, his presence continues to linger. He's referenced in dialogue, remembered in key moments, and occasionally revisited through dream sequences and flashbacks. The show hasn't erased him. It's carried him forward as part of its history. His departure didn't just change the direction of the show, it changed how viewers understood it. It blurred the line between fiction and reality in a way that felt more immediate, more visible. Because, unlike quieter exits, this one made it clear that what happens off-screen can and often does reshape what happens on screen. If Christina Yang's exit was intentional and Derek Shepard's was abrupt, then Meredith Grey's departure has been something entirely different. A slow, carefully managed transition that has unfolded over nearly 2 decades. Meredith Grey's slow goodbye. From the very first episode, Meredith was the heart of Grey's Anatomy. Her perspective framed the story, her voice narrated the drama, and her experiences anchored the audience's emotional investment. Unlike other characters who could come and go, she was always meant to stay, or at least appear to. But even the most central character cannot defy time, contracts, or personal priorities indefinitely. Ellen Pompeo, who plays Meredith, has long been the linchpin of the show's success. Her performance earned critical acclaim, a devoted fan following, and eventually, the leverage to shape her role in ways few actors on long-running series ever experience. Over time, she negotiated higher pay, greater creative input, and a reduced on-screen presence to balance personal life with professional demands. This gradual scaling back has created a unique narrative challenge for the show. Unlike Christina's abrupt exit or Derek's sudden death, Meredith's evolution involves subtle adjustments from fewer intense story arcs to occasional absences and a focus on legacy rather than daily drama. The writers have had to balance honoring her importance while opening space for new characters and storylines. It's a delicate juggling act. Her slow goodbye also mirrors real-life career considerations. As Ellen matured as an actress, her priorities shifted. After nearly 20 years on set, sustaining the grueling pace of network television, long hours, constant filming, and emotional intensity became less appealing. Instead of leaving all at once, she opted for a measured approach, allowing both her character and the show to adapt organically. Narratively, this approach has had several effects. First, it preserves the continuity of the series while making space for innovation. New surgeons, interns, and attendings can take center stage without displacing Meredith entirely. Second, It reinforces the realism of a hospital environment where doctors don't always vanish suddenly. They retire, move, or adjust their responsibilities gradually. Lastly, it allows fans to experience change more gently, providing time to process departures and understand the character's ongoing evolution. This slow transition also demonstrates a unique form of exit. She isn't forced out by circumstances, contract disputes, or behind-the-scenes conflict. Instead, her reduced presence feels intentional, a choice that aligns with the character's journey of growth, resilience, and self-determination. Even within the story, she has been portrayed taking steps to prioritize family, personal health, and leadership opportunities, reflecting Ellen's own considerations off-screen. Yet, the slow pace also creates challenges. Viewers accustomed to clear-cut departures may find this approach ambiguous. Unlike Christina's satisfying exit or Derek's shock, Meredith's story lingers, raising questions. When will she fully step back? How will her reduced role affect the show's direction? What does it mean for the audience to remain attached to a character who is simultaneously central and increasingly peripheral? Despite these uncertainties, her slow goodbye reinforces a central truth about long-running series. Longevity requires adaptation. Characters evolve, actors evolve, and the story must evolve alongside them. By managing this transition carefully, the show preserves both narrative integrity and fan loyalty, avoiding the backlash that often accompanies sudden exits. Meredith's journey also highlights the emotional stakes of gradual departure. Her presence has shaped the tone, relationships, and thematic core of Grey's Anatomy for nearly 20 years. Scaling her role down allows for reflection on her legacy, how she has influenced colleagues, shaped hospital culture, and anchored audience engagement. Ultimately, her slow goodbye highlights a middle path between abrupt shock and complete closure. It acknowledges the realities of television production, respects the actor's personal choices, and provides a narrative framework that supports both continuity and evolution. Fans continue to measure every episode against the shadow of her eventual full exit, knowing that the central heartbeat of the show will not remain unchanged forever. Meredith Grey's slow goodbye is a reminder that in Grey's Anatomy, departures are rarely about endings, but about transformation, both on-screen and off. Contracts, burnout, and the reality of staying too long. While individual exits like Christina Yang's or Derek Shepard's are defined by narrative decisions, there's another layer behind nearly every departure on Grey's Anatomy, and that is the practical realities of television production. Contracts, burnout, and the pressures of long-term commitment shape who stays, who leaves, and when. Television contracts are often the hidden force dictating the fate of characters. When actors join a series, they typically sign multi-year agreements, guaranteeing both salary and screen time. However, these contracts are rarely indefinite. As a show extends season after season, negotiations become increasingly complex. Actors who helped build a show's success understandably expect raises, perks, and more creative input. For Grey's Anatomy, a series that has spanned nearly 20 years, these negotiations can become high stakes and, at times, contentious. Even for core cast members, staying too long comes with consequences. Filming a network drama is demanding, with 10 to 14-hour shooting days, often 6 days a week, and emotionally intense storylines to perform. Over the years, this schedule has taken a physical and mental toll. For some actors, the pressure results in burnout, and a combination of fatigue, stress, and the desire to reclaim personal life outside the set. Sandra Oh, for instance, has openly discussed her decision to leave as a way of protecting her well-being while preserving the integrity of her character. Similarly, other cast members have chosen to step away before exhaustion could impact their performance or personal health. Burnout also messes with creative satisfaction. Actors invest years in building characters, but after a decade or more, storylines can begin to feel repetitive or constraining. Even a lead like Ellen Pompeo eventually sought a scaled-back role, reflecting both a need for balance and a desire to explore other opportunities. When actors feel creatively stifled, leaving becomes a necessary step for personal and professional growth. Network and production dynamics further influence departures. Grey's Anatomy is both a narrative project and a business. Ratings, contracts, and budget considerations often dictate which characters remain central and which are written out. Even highly popular characters may be offered less favorable terms, creating pressure to accept new conditions or move on. Behind the scenes, realities such as salary negotiations, contract disputes, and the prioritization of new talent frequently shape on-screen storytelling, sometimes resulting in abrupt exits that surprise audiences. Long-running series like Grey's Anatomy are particularly vulnerable to these pressures. Unlike shorter shows, where the narrative arc is relatively fixed, a show that spans decades must continuously adapt. Characters age, actors' lives change, and production teams evolve. Contractual limitations, combined with fatigue and creative considerations, make leaving an inevitable choice for many actors. Ultimately, contracts and burnout are inseparable from the life cycle of Grey's Anatomy. Understanding these realities provides ample context for why departures sometimes feel sudden, shocking, or even unfair to fans. Behind every exit lies a combination of practical negotiation, personal well-being, and creative choice. Grey's Anatomy survives, in part, because it has learned to accommodate these departures, even when they are driven by forces entirely outside the fictional hospital walls. Which character's exit stood out the most? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.